Here's a side-by-side look at both crime scenes. The one in Hillsboro from this morning is on the left. The McMinnville theft that happened on Christmas Day is on the right. In both cases, the thieves first stole a tractor, then used that to run over the ATM. In the case today, Hillsboro police say the tractor was stolen sometime overnight from a construction company that's just 3 blocks down the road from Wells Fargo. That means the suspects had to drive the tractor down the street to the bank. Hillsboro police say they've never seen anything like this before.
For all of us who got here to the scene this morning, at whatever time we got here, it was just kind of one of those moments of, wow, that there's a tractor sitting there.
The crime left a huge mess for crews to clean up this afternoon. Police are still trying to figure out how much money was stolen. They say the 2 people involved had a getaway car ready to go. Officers witnessed the suspects jump in a U-Haul and take off. They don't know yet if that U-Haul was also stolen. Officers tried to chase them down, but had to stop when it became too dangerous. A short time later, police found the U-Haul abandoned, but couldn't find the people responsible. If you live or work in the area and have surveillance cameras, Hillsboro police are asking that you check the footage to see if you caught the suspects driving by on the tractor. And if you know anything that can help, call